So today we're going to cover the fretting hand, the left hand for me, right hand for left-handed players. So we know how to make a pitch happen on the bass, how to play a note. That doesn't mean an awful lot until we can add different pitches. Now we do this through the fretting hand, which presses down, frets the strings against the frets up and down the neck. These are divided out into what are called semitones, and they're the same musical pitch separations as playing up the keys on a piano. So the left hand plays the function of holding down the pitch, whereas the right hand will actually sound the pitch. Very much like the plucking hand, there isn't so much a right and wrong way to play, but there is a good way and a bad way to hold the fretting hand. Now, and it's almost a mirror image of the perfect position for the plucking hand. Whereas you want to hold out a sort of almost a bridge shape with the plucking hand, we want to hold the same sort of shape, almost a mirror image of that on this hand. Now, a lot of players will pick up a guitar or bass and grab the neck and have this sort of approach to it. You can see that behind there. Now, that's fine and it feels solid, and there are some great players that play like that with the thumb over the top, but this gives you a major disadvantage when it comes to playing. Now, some of the people make use of the thumb under there, but what you're doing when you grab the bass like this is that these fingers become all scrunched up underneath, and the mobility of those is really limited. Now, again, as getting a bad right hand technique, if you do that, at best you're going to limit what you'll be able to play, but at worst you're going to do yourself damage because you're overly stretching the hand. So what we want to do is have that nice rounded shape, and I'm going to move forward here a bit so you can see the thumb rests nicely and right in the middle of the back of the neck, so like this, and ideally that's sort of approximately in the same position as the middle finger on the other side of the neck. So you're maintaining that sort of rounded approach. It's difficult to show on here. So that's holding that position. Now there are two sort of spacings that I want to cover in this video, and one is the finger per fret rule as it's known, and one is approach more like a double bass player or upright bass player. Now this depends on what you're playing and where you're playing it on the bass. So the finger per fret rule is exactly as it sounds. So if you're playing sort of higher up on the neck or in the middle, if you can space out your fingers so that each finger covers one fret space. Now that's great for positional playing, sort of anything that's requiring covering a lot of ground on the bass. But the disadvantage of that is that your hands are quite stretched out. So that's why I'm saying sort of keep that to the upper end and the middle of the bass. If you're playing down towards the end of the bass, that stretch starts to become really, really big. And unless you've got massive hands, you know, that is quite a stretch. I could just about make that, but it's not very comfortable to play. So down this end, what double bass players do often, the double bass is a longer scale instrument, so the stretch is even wider there. And where there's, we could play a finger per fret, what we like to cover down here is the 4 fingers covering 3 frets. So your index finger is on the 1st fret and your pinky is on the 3rd fret, and then the middle and the ring fingers kind of cover that middle ground between them. Okay, and this is also really, really useful when you're going across the strings, so from low to high or vice versa. Because again, if we go back to the middle here, whereas this is quite comfortable playing 1 finger per fret just along any given string, if I'm going across, if I'm doing like an octave on here, that's quite a stretch, and that's just maintaining 1 finger per fret. But if I bring that back and just use my pinky and then cover 3 frets with 4 fingers, comfortable. So that's kind of the stretch you want to. But if you're doing some exercises, I recommend trying out the finger per fret rule, because it's a great way of getting your hand used to playing in position, and that'll help immensely for complicated lines. But if you're feeling stretched, don't overstretch your hand. If you're feeling pain, then stop immediately, because that's a warning sign for you, and it's important to not do that. So that's the spacing on that. And now the main part of this, further than position, is where to position your finger by the fret. Now a lot of people will say to put your finger right on the fret. I'm going to move forward again because it's really important that you see this close up. Some people will say to put your finger right on top of the fret. Now what you get with that is a certain amount of muting. Okay? And then if your finger is too far forward or too far back, then what you'll get is some fret rattle, or you even move on and get the wrong note entirely. So the ideal position for the fingers on your frets is actually just behind them. So the very edge of your finger is overlapping the fret, but the main bulk of the pad of the finger is sitting just behind the fret. Then you'll get a nice clear note out of each fret. Okay, so just notice that difference. It may not come through totally clearly on here, but okay. So this is something to practice alongside playing with your plucking hand, getting that perfect finger position on the left hand, or the fretting hand I should say. Just pick a string, any string, and just work up and down with each finger, getting used to where that finger should sit. So each finger, when you fret the note down, should be just behind the fret, and that lets the string ring out as best as it can. So that's the basic principle between sounding a note and changing the pitch of the note. In the next videos we'll start covering some exercises to do with that, and we will get on to getting some basic bass lines together.